See if this, oh, it's on. It's great to be with you. I feel like I don't have to add anything to what has already been said. It's been so great to hear about these new products. Is anybody excited for the new oils? Yes. And we're going to talk about that. I have a little bit of time. As I was listening and just appreciating how much knowledge has already been shared about these essential oils, it made me comfortable to know, hey, I can share a lot of information that isn't necessarily specific to these products, but just in general about essential oil chemistry. Why am I here in India? Of course, with Leadership Retreat, but also we have some other exciting things that we're accomplishing with this visit. And it's so great to be with all of you here. This is my first time to India. Anybody else here, first time to India? It's my first time. Maybe there's a couple of people, but I love it. I love being here. It's certainly not, even though it's my first time physically being here, we've had a long history at doTERRA with India. We get a lot of botanical extracts, essential oils, of course, coming from India. And we know that, of course, in India, there's a great appreciation for these gifts of the earth, right? doTERRA and what we represent. So, even though this is new for me, of course, this is not a new experience for those of you here in India. So I'm going to talk about these new products a little bit. Before we get into that, I want to introduce myself. And it's been mentioned, our families are so important to us. There's so much about why we do what we do, right? And this is my family. My wife, Lisa, and our 4 busy children. We love, as mentioned about TerraShield, we love TerraShield in my family because we love to go trekking, as was mentioned. I call it camping and hiking, but we love to be outdoors. Every summer, in the spring, in the fall, we love to get outside. And so TerraShield is one of our favorite oil blends that we use. We're training these kids to also be musicians. We like to make music together. We like to try new foods. I've been able to try some new foods here in India, and they're delicious. But professionally, I'm a scientist. I love to understand how things work, right? When we talk about a product and what its benefits are, we talk about the why of the product. Why would you want to use this? Maybe it helps with stress or anxiety, or maybe it helps with insect repellency or to have better sleep, right? I'm a curious mind. I love to understand what's going on, what's happening, how do these products work, not just the why of the product. So in my own personal life, maybe before I get into this discussion, this will kind of set up for the next. I studied sciences in school. So I studied biology, genetics, chemistry, biochemistry, physiology, and that background has helped me to understand, okay, if we have this type of compound and we have this type of issue or trouble that we want to address, we can match these two up together. We can have a more effective product. And that's what I get to do every day. As was mentioned, I lead our nutraceuticals. Does anybody know what a nutraceutical is? It's kind of a funny term, but it's really about taking compounds in nature and putting them into a dose format that can influence our body and our physiology. This is really the essence of what a nutraceutical is. And this is really the essence of what doTERRA is doing. So I have a great appreciation and background in the sciences and a love for how things work in our bodies. Before I talk about this story, why are we here? Well, one of the reasons why we're here, besides Leadership Retreat, we've been meeting with some groups here in India to help lay the groundwork for new types of products, right? To be able to set the stage for these additional delivery formats and additional product lines to come here to support India. So the future is very bright with lots of opportunity coming down the pipeline. So now I want to talk a little bit about this story. Before I came to India last week, my children were on spring break from school. We went down to southern Utah. We did some hiking. We're outside enjoying the sunshine. And I got this picture. This is my team, right? I imagine all of you have teams. We all have some type of team or another. But this is my team, my family. And I thought this would be a useful story to share because as we were hiking, I'm considered the leader on this team, on this hike. And we're going up these steps. And my team members, they're young, right? They have short legs. Maybe they don't have quite the energy and the stamina that, well, sometimes they have more energy than I do, but their legs aren't as long. So we're going up these stairs. It was important for me to not take too steep of a path or to go too fast, or I would leave my team behind, right? And that's not what I want to do. We want to stay together. It's been mentioned, several other people have shared, the importance of working as a team, of staying together. And to enjoy this hike as a family, we needed to stay together. And as the leader, it was important for me to choose the right path and the right pace so that that team could stay together. It's been mentioned a similar version of this. We love this at doTERRA. If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And you've got a lot of team support here for this leadership event, and I want to encourage you to stay together, to work together. Now, I mentioned I'm a scientist. I love science. I've listed some topics here of different subjects in school that I've studied. I want to highlight here on this sign, or this slide with doTERRA and science, in the middle there is credibility. Does anybody know what credible means? The definition of credible. Definition of credible means the quality of being trusted or believed in, right? And for me, credibility and science go together, but credibility and doTERRA go together, right? When something is credible, it can be verified independently. Each one of us, we're going to have an experience with the essential oils, and many of you have had experiences with essential oils, which is why you're here with us today. But all of us can use these products and have our own experience to verify them for ourselves. And this boosts the credibility of the product and of the brand. Now, as a scientist, though, I'm going to talk about essential oil chemistry today. Much has been said about how we use the new oils that are being introduced today. And somebody even made the comment that there's magic. Right? Have you ever felt like somebody is suggesting that the way a product works is just magic? Have you heard this before?
Yes.
What do you feel about it? It kind of bothers me a little bit. Because I feel like, it's not really magic. It's chemistry. But sometimes when we don't understand how things work, we think it's magic, right? But there's really an underlying explanation. And there's biochemistry. And we can explain, we can understand how the compounds of these essential oils and other types of products, whether personal care products or nutritional products, how they're interacting with the cells, the tissues, even the DNA of our bodies, and causing this cause and effect. So we're going to talk a little bit about essential oil chemistry. We have alcohols, aldehydes, esters, ethers, ketones. Are there any biochemists with us today? Are these functional groups, are these familiar terms for any of you? Somewhat, yeah? These functional groups, this is how these compounds, I'm highlighting this because these chemical constituents of our essential oils, this is how the essential oils are interacting with our bodies, right? On our skin, inside our bodies, in the tissue. Aromatically, when they bind to olfactory receptors. So we'll talk a little bit about that. To get us started, you might wonder, why is he talking about time? We didn't introduce time, right? We didn't introduce time. But thyme is my example oil. Thyme and frankincense. I love that Jim started out earlier today talking about the importance of purity, the importance of consistency. Remember the linalool and that standard deviation, the pharmaceutical grade lavender? There's a 20% range versus what doTERRA has, a very consistent essential oil chemistry. This is important. And he also mentioned that we can't construct an essential oil. We can't just go into the laboratory and create an essential oil with different constituents. This happens in the marketplace, but it doesn't work the same. And these example essential oils I'm mentioning, thyme and frankincense, I just want to tell you a little bit about that. Why is it important to have the whole unadulterated essential oil? There's an interesting study that was done in 2013 looking at the antioxidant capacity of thyme oil. And they could have looked at a number of different parameters, but it's relatively easy to measure the antioxidant capacity of a compound. So they looked at thymol. Thymol is the principal constituent. If you look here, this is a gas chromatogram. This is gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS. You've heard of this before, right? So this is our fingerprint of what is this essential oil. When you look at thyme essential oil, there's 60 different constituents that have been characterized on this chromatogram. But somebody who doesn't know better, or somebody who's constructing an oil in the laboratory, they might look at this peak and say, oh, thymol, that's the principal constituent. That's the only one that matters. It's not true. And the researchers in 2013, when they looked at the importance of the whole essential oil, they looked at all of the fingerprint. This is called the fingerprint of the essential oil chemistry. And they compared the whole oil with a single 100% isolated hydrocarbon fraction of thymol. And guess what they found? The isolated pure hydrocarbon fraction did not perform as well as the whole oil with all the companion constituents as an antioxidant. And this is true for any other number of parameters that could have been measured. So the second example that I'm sharing is about frankincense. So frankincense, a more recent study done in 2019, researchers were looking at the ability of frankincense to reduce inflammation. So they looked at a compound called corticosterone. And corticosterone was reduced when you used the entire frankincense oil with more than 190 different constituent chemical compounds. But when the researchers started to remove specific constituents from the frankincense, the alpha-pinene or the limonene, for example, the ability to reduce corticosterone as a marker of inflammation went away. It didn't work the same. So this concept, this importance of the whole essential oil unadulterated is really significant, which is why I'm taking some time to talk about it. Now, what about doTERRA in general? We, as Jim also mentioned, we're the world's largest essential oil company, right? We have essential oils from all over the world. They're combined in unique ratios or combinations of single oils, like TerraShield, for example, is a blend that we're introducing today. And we study these important gifts of the earth in ways that no other company does. And I've listed here a few examples. I want to tell you a little bit more of each so you can understand why this is so important and why we go to the lengths and the efforts to study these essential oils. So, as was mentioned, this CPTG, Certified Pure Tested Grade Quality Standard, we perform a number of tests on every single batch of essential oil to verify the purity, there's no adulteration, the consistency, the potency, the chemistry is all there as it needs to be there. As we share these examples, it's important to have all of the chemistry there. So we verify that with each batch of essential oil. Aromatic diffusion studies. What is done here? We've had a few different oil blends. You may have heard of them, Adaptive, Serenity. These are oil blends that are well known as diffusion oil blends, right? One of the most common ways for people to experience essential oils is through diffusion. We have olfactory receptors in our nose. We smell things, and you immediately create almost a pin in your memory. How many of you can smell something and it will take you back to a time in history, right? Oh, I remember that when I was at my grandmother's house. Maybe I remember this from when I was a child. So olfaction or smell is very, very important. Where do we smell? We smell in our nose. Where do we have olfactory receptors in our nose? Anywhere else? Skin. Yes, we do, in the skin. Anywhere else? Yes, other organs we have in the liver, in the kidney, even in the endothelial lining of our blood vessels, we have olfactory receptors. This is not commonly known, that we have these receptors where volatile compounds, such as essential oils, can bind to these receptors all throughout our body, not only in our nose, certainly in our nose, but all throughout our body. And this gives us a hint of other ways that we can use essential oils to influence our physiology. Proteomic platforms here. This is an interesting term, but it derives, proteomic kind of suggests proteins, right? Proteins, inside of a cell, we have all different types of proteins, and they're related to one another, so we call this a cascade. When you have a cell, and something can bind to the surface of the cell, and it triggers a cascade response inside of the cell. The study of what happens with this cascade is proteomics. It's called proteomics. And at doTERRA, we've been able to do studies looking at this proteomic response. So most recently, with our MetaPower line of products, we looked at which proteins are influenced by this MetaPower essential oil blend. And in this way, we're able to fine-tune what that oil blend looks like to influence and to interrupt, to arrest the development of fat cells. That's unique to doTERRA. I don't know of any other company that does this kind of research with essential oils. The next example I wanted to share about pharmacokinetics. Again, this is in a drug space, this is more widely understood. But pharmacokinetics is about how your body metabolizes what you consume, right? So if you breathe it in, it goes in through your lungs, you have an exchange in the alveoli of your lungs, it goes into your bloodstream from the lungs. So aromatic diffusion of essential oils is one of the fastest ways for oils to get into the bloodstream. We also, pharmacokinetics, so we've looked at this from the perspective of a dosing of an essential oil. How do you know how much essential oil is needed to have a physiological effect? Pharmacokinetics can give us a better idea because it establishes the half-life, the maximum concentration in the body and the half-life. How fast is that product, is that compound metabolized and broken down in the body? We've done this with lavender, with cinnamon, with peppermint. I don't know of another company that does this kind of research on essential oils. Another example, the enhanced bioavailability. India is well known for turmeric, right? Now, turmeric extract, this is, you can use a water or an ethanolic extraction to get curcuminoids. But curcuminoids are lipophilic. So they're not water soluble, and they don't get absorbed readily into the body. But when you combine this lipophilic curcuminoid extract with termerons of turmeric essential oil, you get an 11-fold increase in the bioavailability of curcuminoids. And so if you want to really enhance the ability of lipophilic compounds to influence the body, it helps to deliver them with essential oils. Nobody else is doing this kind of research. And then as a natural preservative, it was mentioned several of the new oils that we're introducing today, and I showed on the essential oil chemistry slide, the exchange of electrons. A lot of what is happening here is an antioxidant reaction. You can have a free radical that is neutralized because the electrons of the essential oil constituent can bind to and neutralize that free radical. In this way, essential oils are natural preservatives. And the last oil that was introduced and talked about was basil. I'll pick up on talking about basil because one of the interesting things about basil, I guess, basil? You say basil? Basil is a city in... Basil, okay, basil. That works for me because I say basil too. But as a natural preservative, and it's actually been used more recently in a chitosan basil preparation as a food preservative application to prevent spoilage of food. So that's pretty cool. How do we use oils? Now, sometimes this is a little confusing because a product might be registered one way or another, right? It might be registered in the market as a food additive, or maybe it's registered as a cosmetic. How can you know? We have resources. We're a global company, so if you're, I imagine, resourceful and creative, you can look around and get a real idea of how can you use this essential oil, even possibly beyond what it might be explicitly registered for in the market. So we'll talk a little bit about this. We have aromatic, which we've been discussing with diffusion studies. Of topical, our peppermint touch product that we're introducing today is, of course, designed for topical application with the roller ball. We'll talk more about that chemistry. Internally, one of the big advantages of internal use of essential oils, you have systemic distribution, right? Topically is great because you have a very localized, sustained delivery right there. Aromatic is very fast because you don't need to go through the whole digestive process and metabolize the chemistry. Aromatically, you can inhale the oil and it can get into your bloodstream very quickly through the lungs. So that's a big advantage for this. I've mentioned neat, sensitive, and dilute. Depending on the essential oil, it's appropriate or better to combine it with a carrier oil like a fractionated coconut oil, which is what we've done with the peppermint touch. Now let's get into these new oils. Much of what was shared earlier about these, same type of things that I was going to share about the use profile and the chemistry. So one of the unique things that is not obvious about basil is that it's used, you hear about it in the diet, right? I love consuming basil, and it's easy to incorporate into your food. But you wouldn't necessarily think of it like in a stress relieving or an anxiety relieving perspective. And this is accomplished because of the chemistry of the oil. Linalool, lysine, you have the chemical constituents of the oil that impart a specific physiological response. So this essential oil, we partner with small scale farmers in Egypt to grow this. In this tropical climate, it grows really well. 3 kilograms of leaves are used to create each 15 milliliter bottle. If you haven't experienced basil before, hopefully in the experience you'll be able to go and try it and see what this is like. It's great for massage application for relaxation. How does this happen? Aromatic, topical, internal. That's what these little circles, color circles are meant for. We have this methyl eugenol. This as a eugenol, as an alcohol, is donating electrons, and this is how the chemistry of basil oil is interacting with our bodies. But as an electron donor, it works this way. Lemon eucalyptus. I love the way that this oil smells. Anybody else already familiar with this one, even though it's new? Yeah, I love it. It's bright, it's very invigorating, energizing oil. I love it. Again, as I mentioned, grown in Kenya, small scale farmers grown in Kenya. And this, one of the things, Jim also mentioned, he was talking about, loving the people that we work with and loving the people that we interact with at doTERRA. When we're able to partner with an organization that does so much good in the world, our co-impact sourcing efforts that doTERRA goes to great lengths to support a co-impact source, it gives us pride in what we're doing on both sides of the bottle, all around the world. And that's one of the things that I'm most proud to be associated with doTERRA, is the impact that we have, not just in a large corporation, but in small scale farmers on the individual basis as well. The chemistry of eucalyptus, I've highlighted citronellal, which is an aldehyde. We have citronellol as well as an alcohol. This you'll recognize as an effective insect repellent, right? We think of that with TerraShield, which of course is very effective even at small doses. When we talk about TerraShield, you can use less than 5% of a blend of oil and spritz and have insect repellency for almost 4 hours. This is in objective blind studies that this has been established. So lemon eucalyptus, very bright, very great for cleansing. So aromatic and topical use. We don't use this one internally. Before I move on to petitgrain, which I love, citrusadiol. Have you heard of this compound? Citrusadiol is actually considered possibly one of nature's most effective insect repellents. And it's a compound that is present in lemon eucalyptus, which is why that's one of the common ways that people use this in insect repellency. Oops. Petitgrain. I love when Pete was talking about petitgrain, where it's coming from. Again, small-scale farmers in Paraguay. We have some videos on YouTube, on the website, about the impact of providing a market for petitgrain for the farmers in Paraguay, and what that means for them not needing to clear cut their land, to be able to preserve those trees that are all important in the rainforest. And this is significant for us. Now, beyond just the environmental impact there, for our health and wellness, for stress relief, anxiety, as was mentioned, if you don't like the experience of lavender and that floral note, you can use petitgrain in a relaxation, sleep-enhancing mode. So I love that. This one is fine for internal use as well. And these again, the chemistry is what imparts the benefit of the essential oil. So linalool, linyl acetate, again, these are constituents that we have conducted pharmacokinetic profiles around these constituents. So we know that these compounds are getting into the blood. We know that they're responsible for the benefits that people are having, internally at least, with petitgrain. Again, aromatic diffusion. With our diffusion studies, you get enhanced sleep, enhanced relaxation, even enhanced memory. There's been some more recent research around the ability of regularly stimulating your olfactory receptors through scent training, and what this does to your long-term cognitive sustainment, to prevent cognitive decline, to prevent memory decline as you age. A brain that is stimulated from an olfactory perspective long-term does better with memory. So, this is, as was mentioned also, some of the ways that you can use petitgrain to enhance your sleep, stress, relief of anxiety. It's a great essential oil to use. So. TerraShield. I'm also a trekker. My family is a trekker. We love to use this. We have several bottles that we keep on the ready. You don't need to only apply it topically to your skin. You can actually spritz it throughout your environment. So one of the recommendations for how to use this is to add it to a bottle and spray it throughout the home. And as I mentioned, with the essential oils that are included in this blend, you get protection, repellency against insects for about 4 hours with the different constituents that have been studied individually for insect repellency. One of the other unique things is about this essential oil blend is the lemongrass. Lemongrass coming in this blend from India, and we have a nice sourcing story that I want to share about this lemongrass.
Anything, they are not cultivating anything here. So it was totally there, and this belongs to the group, community. The yield is quite good. Now period is coming, now they have harvested 4 times. Last year plantation, this is only 1 year. Now period they are going to take it up up to 5 years, 6 years more. And now they are quite happy, they are getting good money out of this.
Yeah. So this is the plantation when I came in January. And this is the same tree here. Yeah, this has already been harvested twice. So they've sown it, harvested it once, and it's already back to the point where it's getting close to being harvested. And it's just exciting to see how fast it's grown and think about the prospects for the future for this community.
This is great. rich example that how the wasted land could be utilized for the alleviation of extreme poverty. And I'm so impressed. I'm really delighted today to see this happening, and thanks to doTERRA that this has been possible.
नोआते अड़ियान ले जोड़ा कना नी और सोनू कते पैसा पत्र को ले जामी यानी और ओना मा लेखा तमा जे निना टाका हे एना नुआ नोडे बन थाकिया ओना कथा बा आले माने कमी होड़ कना ले आले ले टाका ले नोडे खना ले इदिया नी खर्च पत्र ले लगाव थरा पति भाई हम ना गान गेले सेटर का तो गामा आले मा टोटल माने इदिया खर्च
I love that story. I love the story of all of our essential oils and where they come from and who's involved, the individuals, the families that are involved in bringing these gifts to each one of us. And that's something that we should all be proud of being a part of. So I'm glad we were able to see that. And hopefully you're able to see the pursuit of yesterday. People sharing. So Terra Shield can be used aromatically, topically. We can spritz this throughout the environment to help with insect repellency. Citronella and citronellol are the constituents that are responsible for this. It was mentioned that it helps to prevent mosquitoes. It also helps with wasps or ticks or beetles, other types of insects as well. Now let's talk about peppermint. I love peppermint. Peppermint is one of my favorite essential oils. It's very versatile to use. It's very flexible. We use it in a variety of different dose formats. It's used in a number of essential oil blends for aromatic diffusion. It's also used, we actually have an enterically coated peppermint that delivers this peppermint to your intestines where it's released to relax smooth muscles in the bowels. We have it in this application for topical use. So for tension in the head, you can rub it on your neck, you can rub it on your temples. This is not for internal use. If you have peppermint, you can use peppermint internally as well. So what are some of the advantages of providing this in a touch format? As we've been talking, peppermint is combined with coconut MCT, fractionated coconut oil. And this provides a few different advantages. I want to explain that to you so you can understand why this particular application is an advantage. Volatile compounds, essential oils are volatile compounds. You'll know that heat is used to extract essential oils from plants, right? Steam distillation. The heat will excite these molecules and then they leave the plant. And in the same way, they're also prone to evaporation. So if you apply essential oil topically by itself, it will more readily evaporate from the skin than if you apply it with a fatty carrier oil, such as a coconut MCT oil, which is what we've done with this peppermint touch application. So you get more sustained delivery with the touch application than you do just by itself if you're applying it neat. The other thing is, by applying it with coconut, you can more evenly distribute it across the surface of the skin. And so one of the benefits of coconut, of the menthol, or not coconut, but peppermint, one of the benefits is that it's a topical analgesic. We have a product called Deep Blue. You're familiar with Deep Blue? Deep Blue is very effective in helping to relieve tension, aches, and pains. One of the reasons this is so is because of the peppermint, the menthol that is in this blend. So the chemistry of peppermint is the key to its magic, which it's not magic, it's just chemistry. But I want to talk a little bit about peppermint and menthol specifically. So here, alcohol, this is the primary constituent of peppermint essential oil, and it's responsible for many of the experiences that we have with peppermint. We've been talking, I started by talking about the different ways that we use essential oils, right? And I love peppermint because of its versatility. Now, although the touch isn't for internal use, we do use peppermint internally. We do diffuse peppermint, and of course now we apply it topically. So let's talk a little bit about how this is happening. We'll focus in on this topical application because that's what touch is designed for. These are some depictions of receptors that we have in our skin. This is called a TRPM8 receptor. And what is happening here, we have for cooling and heat sensation. So if you when you go and have this experience with peppermint touch, if you haven't had it with peppermint already, when you go and try this new product, you'll rub it on and you'll notice the cooling sensation. And that's pretty awesome, that's pretty cool. But understanding what is happening is also really cool, right? So when we apply this menthol to the skin, it will bind to calcium channels. So we have here menthol binding to these channels. It causes a rush in on these TRPM8 receptors in the skin, a rush in of calcium and sodium. And we recognize this as a cooling sensation. And this is helping with this topical analgesic effect, right? If we want to have relief topically, which is one of the reasons why our Deep Blue Rub product, or Deep Blue Stick, one of the reasons they're so effective and so loved is because the menthol is providing this topical analgesic benefit. And this is how this is happening with this cooling sensation. Internally is a little different story. Topically, of course, this is what's happening. But internally, in a different tissue type, in the smooth muscles of our gastrointestinal tract, we can have peppermint, not from peppermint touch, but peppermint on its own, delivers and binds to calcium channels and causes their smooth muscle relaxation. So this is why we find peppermint in our Digest Zen, or Zengest in some markets, blends to calm the digestive tract. So this is pretty interesting. Hopefully the chemistry has not been intimidating, and hopefully it's a little helpful to understand what is going on inside of our bodies. It's not magic, it's just chemistry. Yeah?
As you're talking about the chemistry, Can you just advise like how many varieties of oils in a day we can use? Because as you say that when it goes inside the body, cascade of the actions happen. So how many can we use in a day, and within how much of gap? And about the blends, individually you have studies about individual oils, but blends, after blending, do you have any studies when you're blending breed or something else?
Yeah.
So the chemistry must be changing after blending so many oils.
Yep.
So
Great. Let's answer those two questions. So I mentioned proteomic studies, right? We study essential oils in ways that no other company can do. So proteomics. Remember when I talked about metapower with a cascade inside of a cell and all the proteins that are involved? We looked at not just that metapower essential oil blend to help us dial in which essential oils, which ratios to include in that blend. We looked at individual oils and their impact on those proteins, different ratios of those oils and that blend impact on the proteins. And then we were able to select the most effective blend with the right ratios to impact those proteins in this case, the maturation of a fat cell and a adipocyte. So we do look at these types of things, individual oils on their own to help us know which oils in which ratios to include in the blend. As far as the dosing, you're right. We have a number of different oils, a number of different blends. So sometimes people will wonder, how much? Well, if one is good, then 100 is better, right? Not so, right? There's such a thing as too much of a good thing. You know this if you drink a whole bunch of water. Water is good. If you have too much water, it's not good anymore. The same thing applies with essential oil chemistry, right? So if people wonder about how much oil should I consume? And they oftentimes this will come up because they want to consume a variety of essential oil chemistry. And if that's the case, then I would recommend you can do, instead of, it's not necessarily as applicable right now because in India we don't have all these soft gels with a dedicated dose. But if you create your own capsule with a drop of oil, instead of 3 drops of oil in a soft gel, you can have a larger diversity of chemistry without having too much oil altogether. So it's possible to create your own capsules or your own blends with more diversity of oil without having to commit to a really high dose of oil. And this is a good recommendation. I'm going to go back. I was going to share a final thought with you as I wrap up. I don't know if it'll come back up. Maybe it'll come back up. I know I'm over my time. Can I share my story though? Maybe it will come up. Even if it doesn't come up, I'll tell you anyway. So, space, right? In the United States, we had a solar eclipse. I actually missed it because I was coming out and is not in my state, in home state anyways. But if you've seen an eclipse, it's really cool. I'm sharing this story of space. So when we walk around here, I'm sharing this specifically because India is a younger market for doTERRA, right? And this is applicable for any market, but sometimes it's a little bit more applicable in a younger market where things can be a little bit chaotic. When I walk across the stage here, I'm pushing against the stage, and that moves me forward. When we flew on the plane to come here, the plane pushes against the air, and that propels us forward. And if you're on a boat, the boat will push against the water, and it propels you forward, right? In space, it's a vacuum. How do you move? How do you move in space when there's nothing to push off against? You have to push against yourself, right? Equal and opposite reaction. The only way to move through space is to propel and to push against yourself. I bring this up because sometimes we might feel like here on Earth, right? This is the highest heights, and the lower heights we might feel like we need to push off of other people. But at the highest heights, we have to just push off of ourselves. There's nothing else to push against. So I just want to encourage as you keep going and as you work on keeping your teams together, right, to go far together and going to the highest heights. Push against yourself. Make sure we're not pushing against any others. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DaBell, for curating this